Coaches in the NFL are usually pretty far from the spotlight. Unless you're a flashy head coach hire or a hot and up-and-coming rising coordinator, you're likely not going to be talked about much during the game. This leads to some real secret gems of the league flying under the radar, but I don't think there's any coach more under the radar, more underappreciated with such a legendary track record as the esteemed John Fassel. And I am truly convinced that by the end of this video, you will, without a doubt, think that he is one of, if not the single best special teams coach to have ever been in the league, and you'll be surprised at just how underappreciated he is. But as always, there's only one way for a video like this to start out, and that's at the beginning. So let's go back. Guys, living an active and healthy lifestyle is not always easy, and trying to get myself a meal that's both nutritious and delicious while having a wife, 2 kids, a full-time job, and trying to coach on the side is definitely something that I struggle with, which is why I love today's sponsor, Factor. Factor is, without a doubt, the most convenient way to get a restaurant quality meal in a timely manner. And it's not just that it's convenient, it is also delicious. Like let me lose the ad read voice here real quick. Guys, I love working with Factor just because of how good the food is. And now they're adding more flavors to the menu so you can get a nutritious meal without having to compromise on how good it's going to taste, as they're currently launching their Asian flavors and Mediterranean flavors to give them 30 global flavors to choose from. And I seriously love Factor with how convenient they make getting a nutritious and delicious meal, and I think you guys genuinely are going to like it too. That's why I want you to go right now and try it out. And if you go to factor75.com and use code PUNTSFB50, or just click the link right down there below, you're going to get 50% off plus free breakfast for an entire year. That's right, factor75.com. Punt FB50 as the code for 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Guys, I'm telling you right now, do it, make eating healthy a little bit more convenient, and then thank me later. It's awesome. Now, we may not go all the way back to when he was a grad assistant at Idaho State, but let's go to when he started in the league as a special teams assistant for the Ravens. He got there in 2005 largely due to his father, Jim Fassel, getting the offensive coordinator job, I would assume. But here, he would go and get to be the assistant under the special teams coordinator by the name of Gary Zahner. You see, Gary is known to be a whiz at identifying and developing talent, so much so that when he was done with his time coordinating in this league, to this day, he still runs the largest talent identifying camp for the NFL, where most scouts will come out just to listen to what he has to say about the newest batch of kickers, punters, and long snappers. This could be seen immediately, as in 2005, they would draft punter Sam Cook, who would not just move the needle on how good punters could be, but is often seen as one of the league's craftiest and most innovative punters, which, just hold on to that little thought bubble. And whether it was Gary who saw the potential in Sam or John Fassel who saw it, here it became clear that Gary's influence on John's ability to detect talent in special teams would be spurred on. But 2006, John's dad would get fired, leading to him cutting ties with the Ravens in 2008, where he would move to the Oakland Raiders. In 2009, he would get the coordinating job, ushering in what I call the John Fassel era of football. Now, let's take a look at what the Raiders had going on in 2009, because there's no doubt they had some talent on special teams. They had arguably the 2 best kickers of footballs that the league had seen to this point when they went out and drafted Sebastian Janikowski in the 1st round and Shane Lechler in the 5th round, and both of these guys were known for just being immense talents. But the thing was, before this point, they were pretty good, but not really dominant. Yeah, I mean, Shane Lechler immediately was an all-pro level punter, but he wasn't leading the league consistently, and the times he did, it was more of a reflection of the league having a slight down year than him dominating. On top of that, for being a 1st round pick, Janikowski was having a slow start to his career, as all the leg in the world didn't seem to matter if it wouldn't go through the uprights, as he was very much so a year-to-year kicker and not particularly impressive from 50 plus, as he even had years like 2005 where he missed all 3 of his 50-yard attempts. But when Fassel got there, almost overnight something drastically changed. Shane Lechler, coming off his best year to this point, averaging 49.1 yards a punt, damn near matched it as he went 48.8 yards that year, but with 17 more punt attempts. Janikowski immediately hits the longest field goal of his career at 57 yards, and this was just the first year as the assistant. When they turned the keys over to him, he took these 2 sports cars for kickers for a drive, and holy he almost broke the NFL. Shane Lechler would come out this season and completely dominate the NFL in every punting category. He averaged 51.1 yards per punt, the best average in the modern era of football, and one that would stand for another decade and some change before a young punter named Ryan Stonehouse would shatter it. And while Fassel somehow bringing this out of Shane was impressive, what's even more impressive was the Raiders' ability to cover those punts. Because this giant gross average didn't stand alone. He netted 43.9 yards a punt, not just shattering net punt records everywhere, but starting a punting arms race like no other, as the waves of this season are still being felt by specialists everywhere. And don't forget about Seabass. He was having one of the best years of his career. He demolished his field goals at an 89% make rate. He was hitting bombs from long range with ease, backing up to a new career record of 61 yards, which, let me remind you, was absolutely insane in 2009 and converted on 50 and beyond at his highest level we had seen from him. And while you may think, Isaac, how can you attribute these individual performances of the coordinator? Just wait, because we'll circle back around to that. But the next year, they're right back at it. Shane with another all-pro performance, this time showing more poise as they reined it in, and he suddenly was a field position master, as his touchback rate was suddenly one of the lowest in the leagues while having one of the highest net punts, and on the top half of the league in the inside 20 stat, and at the bottom of the league in touchback percentage. Meanwhile, Janikowski, continuing his big leg tour, was still mashing monster kicks, but 2011, Fassel's magnum opus for the Raiders, Shane would come back out and nearly reach the heights from 2009, this time averaging 50.8 yards per punt and a top 5 net punt once again, and only lost the first team all-pro punt to another punter by the name of Andy Lee, who was just having a berserk year in his own right. While Lechler was having one of his best years, the Polish cannon finally brought it all together. He connected on 31 of his 35 kicks, making 7 of his 10 50-plus yarders, as he showed how elite of a long-range kicker he was by smashing the NFL record field goal of 63 yards at the time. But for one of the few times in NFL history, both the kicker and the punter for the team were selected as All-Pros. Now, you might just think these were some good years, but it's actually the most important stretch of years for these guys. Without this 4-year time frame where Lechler breaks the NFL record and Janikowski shows how consistently good from long range he is, their whole legacy, no pun intended, looks way different. Especially when you consider that immediately after when Fassel left, it's like he took the magic with him. Lechler never won an All-Pro again or went to another Pro Bowl and couldn't seem to average over 48 yards a punt, with his net punt immediately dropping down into the high 30s instead of low 40s, and Janikowski never connected on a kick from 57 again. But would any coach have gotten this performance from them? We'll never know. We only know that when Fassel moved on to the St. Louis Rams, lightning would strike twice. In 2011, the Rams special teams room was not in the best spot. They had Donnie Jones, who had a couple of All-Pro years behind him, but he was off his peak, and Josh Brown, who was a serviceable journeyman kicker. But it appeared that when they gave Fassel the keys to do what he wanted with his room, he does the unthinkable, which was let go of 2 proven vets and go and get 2 rookies. The 2 rookies being drafted kicker Greg Zuerlein and going after an undrafted punter in Johnny Hekker. Now, if you don't know specialists, this might not mean too much to you, but if you do, you're probably a brick by learning these 2 guys were brought in by one guy to one team. And while 2012 was a getting your feet wet year for the 2 rooks, my God, Johnny Hekker was about to do the unthinkable and go on an All-Pro run that we had never, literally never seen before. Not even by Shane Lechler, who we all thought was going to hold the undisputed GOAT crown forever. But from 2013 to 2018, he would win first team All-Pro 4 times and be the second team All-Pro the other 2. He not only led the league in yards per punt in 15 while having the most punts in the NFL, but every single year he would do things to the net punt stat we thought were impossible. I'm talking about breaking the record in 2013 with a 44.2, then being a top 5 net punt again for the following year as the league was trying to catch up, before having a 43.7 in 2015, and by 2016 he would have a 46-yard yard net punt, the highest that literally has ever been recorded, before going back down to a still insane 44.3 and a 43 the 2 following year. But while his spiral punting was as good as anyone, his inside the 20 game was on a different level. He was hitting misdirection punts, he was hitting banana balls, and to top it off, Fassel was calling the most aggressive fake punts the league has ever seen. With Hecker at the helm, they were just a feared unit by returners and blockers alike. And on the kicking side, yeah, we were in the middle of Justin Tucker's prime, but even in 2017, Greg Zuerlein was able to steal a first-team All-Pro off Tucker's plate by making 95% of his kicks, and this, once again, being one of those rare years where both the kicker and the punter for a team were first-team All-Pros. And what's even crazier about that, he not only had the best kicker and punter, but returning his kicks and punts was Pharoh Cooper, who had the second highest punt return total and the highest kick return average in the league too, as every phase of special teams was under pure and total domination by this coordinator. And if you're still not convinced and think, well, maybe he just got lucky in Oakland already having 2 greats and he got a couple lucky picks with Johnny Hecker, in 2020 he took his talent to the Dallas Cowboys, where he really just outdid himself. You see, they had Chris Jones, who was in his final days in the league, and he was reunited with Greg Zuerlein, and while that seemed not too much to report, they would bring in an interesting choice at punter by the name of Brian Anger. And to put it simply enough, Anger had not been great to this point. He wasn't bad, always slightly above average, but he never turned the corner. And would you believe me if I said that in his first year under John Fassel, he turned the freaking corner. His net average jumped through the ceilings to 44.3 while averaging 48 yards a punt in one of the best seasons of his career after a pretty solid 2022 campaign. But he would one-up himself again by breaking the 80-year-old punting record with a 51.4 yard average. But not just that, he would average 45.3 yards in net punt, leading the league in this category, as Fassel's punter always seemed to be able to do. And while his punter whispering is something I like to harp on, what he's truly going to be known for in this era is maybe one of the greatest, riskiest move by a coordinator ever, and that was bringing in UFL kicker Brandon Aubrey, a man who never played organized football outside of the UFL, where if you look at things like crowd size and pressure, it pales in comparison to even smaller FBS colleges. There was no way of knowing if he could translate what he did to the NFL, but it turned out to be one of the smartest moves ever, as Aubrey now, almost without a question, is one of the best, if not the best kicker the NFL has ever seen, and has a strong trajectory to go down as the GOAT. And speaking of UFL pickups, he also nabbed Kevontae Turpin, who immediately became one of the most dangerous return mans in the NFL, as he was also one of the first to innovate on the new kickoff return rules with his reverse and fake reverse package. But this coach's resume, sitting here in 2025, is helping select one of the most innovative punters of all times with the Ravens, guiding 2 of the most talented specialists of the 2000s to their career-defining years and why they're known as some of the best to ever do it, before immediately leaving and finding the diamond in the rough of Johnny Hecker, who would go on the most dominating 6-year punter run ever and redefining what good net punt could even be, while launching us into the future with punting style and getting the absolute best out of Greg Zuerlein before moving on to the Cowboys, reviving a 10-year vet who many thought didn't have much left in him, and bringing in the new era of special teams by finding the greatest kicker to ever walk this earth and a dangerous return man. He's been a part of every great punting run that has ever existed. He brought in a GOAT to the league, and the entire NFL landscape has been essentially cultivated under the guidance of what he is doing, and all people ever talk about is when he runs a fake punt. And this is why he is the most underrated special teams coordinator to ever walk the earth, and my personal GOAT.
Bones he's awesome.